beautifuls, this is Aromie here, and welcome back to Seduce Me Too. So last episode we tried to escape the demon world and failed, but all the brothers are back here, and we're here now in the ambassador room with Matthew. Stepping in, Matthew looked around in slight awe.
Whoa, awesome digs.
Awesome digs, what? I had to giggle at Matthew's surprise. It was almost like we had stepped into a hotel on a vacation, except this one was forced on us until the end of the Civil War. It was mildly messed up, but it was a situation we had to deal with. I walked over to the bed and sat down, letting out a sigh at feeling the softness underneath me. The bed was still as comfy as last night. Matthew, however, began to walk around the room, taking in the sight of the decor.
This is a really fancy room. Wonder what room the others got.
I smiled, watching Matthew ponder for a moment before replying to his statement. Yeah, apparently this is the open ambassador's room. I was able to sleep here when I arrived. Matthew stared at me dumbfounded for a moment before slapping his forehead and shaking his head.
Right. Time's different here. Holy crap, I forgot about that.
Oh, wait, huh? I became confused as to what Matthew meant. What did he mean about time being different here? Matthew looked up at me and grinned sheepishly.
Well, how do I explain this without making it confusing?
Matthew rubbed the back of his head, staring at the fireplace before speaking.
Well, you see, time moves faster here compared to the human world. Like, much faster. If I remember right, then I think the time difference is every 5 hours here is 1 hour there? Maybe?
Wow. Wait, huh? So if I was here for a day, then... Matthew took a moment to do the math before nodding and speaking again.
Yeah, that's right. You were gone from the human world for about 5 hours.
5 hours? I was astonished. The time difference was really prominent and a little disorientating. Whatever. Didn't that mean time moved faster here? I was getting confused, holding my head to try and unscramble my thoughts as the collided. Matthew, however, rushed over to me and sat down next to me, hip to hip.
Hey, don't worry about it, okay? We found you, so that's all that matters.
I could only nod before looking at the ground. It was a lot to take in, but at least I wasn't really missing for a day in the human world. However, I was going to be here for a week, so in accordance to the time difference, I would be missing for more than a day. How was everyone at home going to react? I could only hope that something was used as a cover to delay the wedding or the like. I looked up to Matthew, now a bit concerned.
Huh? What is it?
What happened while I was missing? Matthew frowned a bit and rubbed his head, running his hands through his fluffy hair as he spoke, staring at his knees.
Well, when you didn't come with the rings, we got kind of worried and tried to call you. When you didn't pick up, we kind of panicked, but Irene and Iridessa decided to rush over to the house to see what had happened. They came back, saying you were gone. We pretty much scrambled to use our magic to wipe everyone's memories, reschedule everything, and use the time to find out what happened.
Oh, you guys did so much for me. Matthew pressed his lips together, most likely remembering what he felt during my absence. I felt bad, but there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Matthew shook his head and continued.
I guess we have to thank Simon for finding you. Without him, we wouldn't have figured out what happened.
No, Simon. Simon? Matthew nodded before stuffing his hand in his pocket and pulling out the infuriating stuffed animal. Simon blinked a couple of times before looking up at me and giggling like he usually did. Simon! Simon jumped from Matthew's hands into my arms and crawled up onto my shoulder, becoming immobile, like a doll. Once he settled between my neck and shoulder, I gave his head a little pat before looking back to Matthew. Well, he was the one that hid the rings. I had to find him.
I know, but after you were taken, he helped us pinpoint where you were, and bam! Here we are.
Matthew chuckled a bit as he ruffled some of Simon's fur.
I guess this little furball was useful after all.
I could only smile before leaning over to kiss Matthew's cheek, making him gasp slightly.
Huh?
At least you found me. Soon we'll be able to go home and get married like we planned. It gave me a little hope to let the thoughts sink in. Despite the terrible situation we were in, we would soon be able to go home. I was positive we would win this war and everything would work out just fine in the end. Matthew seemed to agree, nodding as well with a smile.
Yeah. We'll go home soon.
Matthew wrapped his arms around me and nuzzled the side of my head, making me softly giggle. I was going to say soft giggle, but then I was like, wait, what? My body felt relieved to have him near me, causing me to wrap my own arms around him. My heart was jumping with joy regardless of the situation we were in. Simon took to the key to hop off his shoulder and quickly skittered across the floor and up to the fireplace mantel, resting on it with the decor that sat upon it. Matthew, however, soon released me and fell back onto the bed, feeling its softness.
Man, it's been so long since I felt a demon bed.
What's the difference from a regular bed? Matthew grinned up at me and crossed his hands behind his head, lounging back on the mattress.
Well, demons don't sleep in this world, so we get very comfy beds just so we can lay back and relax on.
Wait, demons don't sleep?
Nah, we're too paranoid that people will kill us in our sleep.
Then how the heck do you function?
Energy and food. As long as we have both, we can pretty much be awake 24/7.
The way that Matthew seemed relaxed about the whole thing made it seem relaxed about the whole thing made it seem like being here. All right. A part of me was curious on whether or not he liked being in this world more than the human world, but I had to remember he went to the human world of his own accord. Besides, he was ready to marry me and live his entire life in my world. Matthew stretched and let out a groan before relaxing back on the bed sheets, letting out a small yawn.
Oh, I'm tired. You want to hit the hay?
Oh, you're so adorable. I nodded, feeling exhaustion run over me, causing me to lie back and cuddle up to Matthew, nuzzling into his shoulder. He chuckled before wrapping an arm around me.
I love you so much. I promise we'll get home soon.
This is probably why you guys are all into Matthew. He's such a Casanova. I smiled, kissing his cheek before closing my eyes and drifting to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. However, as I opened my eyes, I found myself not looking at Matthew or in my bed, but I felt cold ground beneath me and something tightly wrapped around my neck. I looked down, seeing my skin dusty and dirty, which only added more confusion. What was happening to me? I reached up and gasped once more as I felt a familiar collar around my neck, a chain dangling from the front and running behind me. I instinctively grabbed the collar, trying to pull it from my neck, but as I did, something yanked the chain connected to it and causing me to fall back, knocking the wind out of me. What is going on, yo? I turned my head to the chain, pulled to see a familiar imp demon glaring down at me and gripping onto my chain. It was the same imp demon from the vision Matthew showed me when Diana came around. How could this be? I quickly grabbed the chain and tried to yank it from his hand, wanting to be free, but found no strength to actually pull it out of the imp's grasp. The imp merely cackled and pulled the chain again, making me fall forward onto my stomach. I froze. This was another dream, and I could tell that Matthew was going to be the villain once again. My mind began to panic as I scrambled up to my hands and knees, looking around at the predicament I was in. I was in a large steel cage. My chain hung out between the bars in the hands of an imp guarding my cell. I had no neighbors, nor did I hear anyone else in the space with me. This was definitely a dream, and I needed to wake up before Matthew came around. Who knew what he would do to me? This was a dream after all. I looked around the room, slowing my breath and trying to think logically. What could I do? The first thing was to do something about the chain around my neck. Then I could try and break the door down somehow and be free. Seems like a good idea. I quickly grabbed the chain again and swiveled on the ground to be on my bottom, locking my feet against the door and pulling the chain back. I managed to get some purchase, and luckily, the imp couldn't manage to pull me forward from my struggle. A large bolt of red lightning suddenly traveled down the chain and shocked the collar around my neck, causing me to release a soundless scream. My body became electrocuted in red light and energy, sending waves of pain through every part of me. As he finally stopped, I let out a gasp and fell onto the ground, shaking from the aftermath. My body felt entirely jittery and licks of pain brushed over my nerves from the shock. What the hell? I could barely look over at the imp from the pain I was feeling, seeing him smirk at what he had done. However, as soon as I saw the grin appear on his ugly lips, a foot jammed on the side of the imp's head, causing it to buckle over. Huh?
You fucking pig fawn! What did you do?
My eyes glanced over to see Matthew in his demon form, glaring daggers at the fallen imp with his foot jammed onto his cheek. As he looked at me, still angered with a snarl across his expression, I gasped, seeing the familiar cold color over his eyes. The evil Matthew had returned. Gingerly, Matthew took up my chain and pulled me closer to the door, leaning in and keeping the chain beneath his head so he could bring my head as close to him as he could without me being pulled against the bars on the door. Staring into his eyes, I was surprised to feel calm and almost hopeful that maybe this was a different Matthew, one who wasn't cruel and full of ill intent. Then again, he kept me in the cell and didn't release me, so that was a sign that I was wrong. Despite this, he spoke calmly and almost comfortingly.
Did he hurt you?
Of course, I nodded. Whatever electrocution to the imp had done made me feel like I was dying for a split moment. Matthew, in response to my reply, glared at the imp with a deadly pair of eyes, causing the victim in question to slink back against the wall.
I order you not to hurt her. If she's hurt, then she can't give me proper energy, and I won't be able to rule this world properly. Do you know how much of a problem that would be?
A very big problem. The imp opened his mouth to protest, but as soon as he did, Matthew formed a knife in the air and chucked it into his open mouth, a splash of blood erupting from behind the imp's head as the knife embedded itself into the back of his throat. With a garbled whimper, the imp slowly collapsed to the ground, dying at last. I, however, could only watch horrified with my hands over my mouth. What was going on? Matthew turned back to me and pulled my chain slightly, causing me to look back at him with fearful eyes.
There! Now he won't hurt you anymore.
Why? Why are you doing this? Let me go. Matthew's face slowly shifted to a cold, sadistic glare.
I would. But how will I know that you won't run away from me?
I began to panic. I wanted to be free. I wanted to run, but Matthew here wasn't going to let me go, and I didn't want to stay in the cell any longer. Despite every fiber in my body wanting me to awaken, I couldn't. I promise I won't run. Make me your queen. Or don't say anything. I feel like if he makes us his queen, he'll abuse us even more. We're not gonna say anything. I didn't want to speak to this man anymore. This person was not my Matthew. He was a figment of my nightmare, an illusion I was forced to endure while stuck in sleep. With a smirk, Matthew licked his lips and stared deep into my eyes.
Aw, are you playing the quiet game now? You won't be playing it for long when I come back.
Alright. A disgusted shiver ran up my spine as I glared hard at Matthew. He, however, only chuckled and stepped back, sliding his hand up to the end of my chain.
I'm not in the mood to take your energy now. I'll come back another time.
With a flash of blue energy, the chain in his hands vanished and reappeared, above me, giving me enough slack to let me lie down, but only if I was directly underneath it. I grimaced and pulled at the chain, wanting to still be free from it, but only heard the chuckle of Matthew's cruel sadism as he turned and began to walk away.
You better be prepared when I get back. I've got a world to rule after all. Can't spend all my time making sure you're ready.
Well, that's horrible. A violent quake ran through my body, and I began to struggle harder, making him laugh as he left the hall out of my sight. Let me go, butthole. I shut my eyes tightly, pulling and tugging as much as I could, despite it being to no avail. I screamed once again, this time breaking the illusion around me and waking up at last. I sat up screaming through the air as my hands clasped themselves around my neck. My scream reverberated throughout the room, barely letting me notice Matthew falling out of bed beside me. I quickly looked out over at the sound of a hard thump on the ground, seeing Matthew's curly head peek out from over the side of the bed. His hand ran over his hair as a pained groan escaped his lips.
Oh
my god! Ignoring what had just happened to me, I scrambled across the bed and slid off the bed to kneel beside Matthew. Luckily, he wasn't badly injured, but he rubbed his head, obviously disoriented from falling out of the bed. To add more insult to the injury, Simon had crawled down from the mantel and began to poke at Matthew with his mini knife. Thankfully, the knife wasn't actually sharp, so all it did was prod and poke at Matthew's skin without drawing blood.
God, Simon! Simon, knock it off!
That's kind of adorable how Simon's like, oh, he's awake, let me just poke him with my knife. Matthew floated his arm, almost knocking Simon away with his hand. Taking the hint, Simon jumped onto the bed and began to hop around on top of it as his own distraction while I looked to Matthew. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Oh.
No. Matthew grimaced, stretching his head and neck before shaking his head and looking up at me, slightly bleary-eyed from sleep.
You okay? Or did you have another nightmare?
I looked down at the ground between us. Remembering the nightmare I was trapped in, I could only nod, pressing my lips together, causing Matthew to frown.
I'm sorry. Do you want a hug?
Yes. Please? Despite the nightmare, I still loved Matthew and needed it. And I love hugs, so I'm never going to turn him down. I needed him with me. I knew the dreams I was having weren't real, and even if they were trying to warn me of something, Matthew was still the man I was going to be married to. The man I was going to be married to. Matthew smiled softly before swiveling onto his knees and hugging me to his body. Laying my head on his shoulder, I wrapped my arms around him and closed my eyes, taking in his reassuring scent. As a set of knocks appeared at our door, however, Matthew and I shot our heads in the direction of the sound.
Oi! Time to wake up! We got grub!
Ugh, can you not call it that?
Matthew and I looked at each other before scrambling up onto the bed, forgetting that Simon was on it. I slid across the bed and sat down, trying to make it seem like I had just woken up, as Matthew tried to crawl over, but wound up making Simon release a heavy squeak.
Ah!
Once again, Matthew fell off the bed and landed on the floor, releasing another shout of pain.
Is everything alright in there?
We're fine! We're fine!
Simon, cackling at Matthew's mistake, scrambled up back onto the fireplace mantel and became a doll once more as I cleared my throat. Come in! As the door opened, Matthew threw himself onto the mattress, placing his head on his hand like he had completely planned to kneel beside the bed as his brothers and their wives entered with plates of food in their hands. Damien and Twyla? I really hope that's how you pronounce her name. I'm horrible with names, honestly. The ones who were carrying extra plates of food. That's kind of screwed up, because I really like Damien, and then he's the one handing me food now. Great! Stopped and stared at us with raised eyebrows. Damien, of course, looked over at the mantel at Simon, before smiling and shaking his head, passing his extra plate to Matthew.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome, Matthew.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Is it Twyla? I'm gonna say Twyla because it's like twilight. So Twyla placed her extra plate in my hands and smiled before walking over to an empty space with Damien and eating. On the plates were sliced fruits, bread, cheese, and some sort of jerky. James and Sam, however, were the only ones who didn't start indulging in what was on the menu.
So, we have less than a week to prepare for the Demon Lord.
You know, fuck me. But I'm excited as shit to finally get to kick his ass into the ground.
The other brothers seemed to agree, even Matthew. However, I was stuck on the nightmare I had before. I unconsciously rubbed my neck, remembering the feel of the collar around my neck. Doing so caught Iridessa's attention.
Hey, what's wrong? Did you hurt your neck?
I instantly looked up and stared, seeing everyone now look at me in curiosity. I shook my head violently, not wanting anything to know what had happened. I'm fine. Yeah, totally don't worry about me, okay? The wives seemed unconvinced, but they nodded anyway. The boys, however, focused on the battle ahead of us.
So, do we plan on training like we usually do?
That seems to be the best plan. It's been a long time since we've actually fought in a battle.
Have you fought in one before?
The boys, despite the shame in their eyes, nodded slowly in unison.
Part of us living in our father's castle involved receiving the occasional unexpected visitor.
Holy crap, man. I remember one time there was this group that just stormed in and tried to take on the old man, but he sent James to take care of him. I'd never seen James so pissed off before.
That's because they threatened to burn the castle down if I didn't surrender. Obviously, that was out of the question.
Well, Sam, what about you when you got into those fights with the army generals? They weren't too happy about you being so testy with them.
So they've all been fighting a whole lot.
They got cocky and thought they could push me around. Fuck 'em and good riddance.
He's like the only one that cusses a whole lot in this group. The more I listened, the more the more the battle stories seemed. Okay, timer, I know. The more the battle stories seemed more about James, Eric, and Sam. Damien obviously stayed out fighting, but what about Matthew? We will never know. Because that's where I'm ending it. So thank you guys for watching. Stay beautiful. And I hope you guys are enjoying the series. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.